I like to think of accounts when I'm doing account planning. I like to think of it as a marketplace. Um, and when I think about it as a marketplace as opposed to a bunch of opportunities, I start thinking about how I segment my market, how I approach the market. And it kind of gives me cause for pause. And I need to kind of think about where I focus and where I don't focus. And the reality is that not a lot of folks are good at account planning, right? So our data would suggest that 53% of reps are effective at maximizing the return from their key accounts. And those that can achieve 41% greater revenue. So that's the opportunity that I'm going to try and kind of hold your attention on, if you like. So there's a 41% revenue improvement opportunity. And there are three key things that I want to talk about. So with account planning, it's really important that we can kind of discover new facts. Right? It's really important that we can bring insight to our customer. And if we think about it as a market, we need to learn about our market and understand the trends in the market and understand what's happening differently so that when we're working with a customer, we can bring some insight. That's point one. Point two, when we're working with the customer, we will have knowledge that the customer will share. We will have information from other people on the account team. And we'll typically have data in our CRM. And it's really important that we look at how we integrate the knowledge from the customer, the data from the CRM, and the information from the other people on the account team to add some velocity. And we can get tremendous velocity when that happens. And the third thing is, again, it's a market, and I can't cover all of my market equally. So I need to focus, and I need to do that for impact. What's really important, of course, is that it's always about the customer. And we know that, for example, customers go through 4 phases, right? So we have the prospect, and we all get very excited, right? It's a prospect, and then the prospect becomes a customer. And we work with the customer, and they buy our products, and if we serve them well, they become a loyal customer. And the challenge, unfortunately, is that the 4th step, anyone? Right, the 4th phase, typically, they become a former customer. And I would say that in many ways, the essence of account planning is to try and accelerate the first 3 and stop it right there. And the reason why they become a former customer is not because your product is expensive, it's not because they're better competitors in the market, but typically it's because they don't feel loved. Right? And if they don't feel loved, then they're going to have reason to look elsewhere. So to maintain this, we need to maintain a very strong degree of trust. And trust is important, and trust is getting increasingly hard. Right? So here this is a chart from Edelman, who do great work on trust. And the red line is the shape of kind of the trust curve in the US, and the blue is in Europe. Europe's in a pretty rough place right now. Right? And we kind of see this. So how do we build trust? And when we do, who are the people who we can trust? So if we look at this is if I was to hear something about a company from somebody, would I believe it? And this is 2011. So academic or experts are independent and have little bias, and I tend to believe what they say. The CEO is just halfway up the curve, right? And down the bottom, and you've seen this kind of develop over the last number of years, I tend to trust someone who's like me, who has my same experiences, and who kind of brings those kind of things. And then I'm more inclined to think about regular employees and what I think about that. So what do you think happened in 2012? What changed? And the truth is, academic is still good. Right? A person like you has got a lot more value in trust now. And that's true because we see people are going to their social networks a lot more. They're looking for peer review, they're looking for peer input, and they're looking for, if I'm buying something, I'm going to listen to someone like me. The CEO has unfortunately fallen off a cliff. I'm one of those, and I fell off a cliff. Right? And so people don't listen to that anymore. So the trust thing, if I'm trying to develop my account and I'm trying to stop people become former customers, I need to consider how I influence and look at the people on the right there, how I can use those folks to influence what's happening in the customer. Right? So trust is hard. And the other thing that's happening is you need to be working really fast. Right? So you need to get on your motorbike. Right? Right, so here's the point, right? So in the next kind of 20 minutes, you're going to have 700,000 apps downloaded from the App Store. You'll have 500,000 visitors on LinkedIn. There'll be 6 billion emails. There'll be 5 million tweets. There'll be 146 days spent on Facebook in the next 20 minutes. Now, they are all consumer trends, right? And it's all consumer data. But the truth is, right, that while not all consumers are business people, all business people are consumers. And we tend to be informed in our business world by what happens to us in consumer world. And so the kind of data that I talk about in terms of things happening more quickly and being more connected and so on are things that are impacting us in our marketplace. And as we look at account planning, right, our marketplace is the account we're looking at, right, and your job is to be the market leader in your segment. That's your only job, right, to be your market leader in your segment. So that means you need to understand how it is you lead, what your market is, and what your segment is. So I'm an engineer, and when I think about these things, I think about systems. And I try and think about, okay, so how would I go about do this? So I'm both an engineer and I'm an Apple geek, right? I have so many Apple products. My house is like an orchard, right? But so we've got lots and lots of kind of systems I think about, and I go, okay, so think about account planning, right? I'm wondering, can Siri help? So I go and I ask Siri and I say, okay, so looking at this account, how much revenue can I get from this account? And of course, Siri doesn't have a clue, right? But the reason Siri doesn't have a clue is, whereas if I say to Siri, so where do I get a pizza in San Francisco? It'll know where I am. It'll have a knowledge of my territory. It'll know how to get from here to there, and it can apply that kind of context. So if we think about that in terms of my account planning, I need to have a system. I need to have knowledge, information, and data that I can use. And we kind of think of this as as your sales ecosystem. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my market, right? And I'll do that, and I'll do normal kind of stratification of my market with my key accounts at the top, some named accounts in the middle, and then the kind of smaller ones at the side. And I think about that before I start to address the market. So if I go and pick a large account, the next thing I need to do in that account is I need to look within the business units and the divisions and find out, where are my A accounts, right? Where are my A units? Where do I focus so that I can take the solutions that I provide that apply most appropriately to the business units in the account. And once I do that, I get some opportunities, and I work those opportunities, hopefully to go and close deals. So I try and think about the account planning as that kind of system, so I can kind of work through those to get to those systems. But remember I said at the start that it's hard? Well, it's hard because it starts with the need to do a ton of research, right? And if we do, the more research we do, the more informed we are, the more value we can bring to our customer. And research is all about what I refer to as the 3 C's, right? So the top C on the right is the Irish Sea. The one on the right is the Adriatic. Actually, they're the wrong C's, right? Of course, it's right. So it's the customer, the competition, and the company, right? So I need to know a lot of things. And from the customer's point of view, I need to know how they buy. I need to know the market they're in. Is it a new market? Is it a mature market? Is it a declining market? I need to know their suppliers. I need to know how their operations work. I need to know their competitors. And the competitors that I need to think about are not just those people that I meet who are selling against me, but any kind of competitive force that's stopping me achieving my goal. And of course, with those competitors that I'm competing with, I need to know their levels of relationship, how they sell, do they sell ethically, how do they price? And an area that I find doesn't often get enough attention is the company, your own company. So what resources can I bring? What's the company's strategic direction that needs to be aligned with where the customer is going? So lots of research needs to be done. And once I've done that, I can start looking at kind of segmenting my account and pick those pieces of fruit, if you like, that are the sweetest and see if I can avoid the lemons and decide where in the market grid, right, what are the squares that I want to go and populate, right? So we like to think about this as taking the market, breaking it down into segments, and because it's a difficult project, we try and make it as easy as we can for the rep, right? So what you're looking at here is, this is our Dealmaker product, and there are 6 kind of units in this account. For this account is called Ancaster Engineering, and there's 6 units. And what I want to do is use a structured method to go and value each of these. And in this case, I'm looking at growth potential, I'm looking at current importance, I'm looking at current opportunities, I'm looking at profit contribution. And then, of course, what I'm trying to do is understand which of these accounts are going to end up as which of these units, are going to end up as my A units, which is where I'll focus. But it is all about the customer, right? I want you to kind of think about this for a second, right? So I think this statement is true, right? The impact on the customer of a bad buying decision is usually greater than the impact on the salesperson of a lost deal. So if that's true, and if a salesperson takes that to heart, what happens? The salesperson starts thinking about what are the business problems the customer really has? What is the customer's perspective? What is the impact on the customer? Now, unfortunately, right, not all reps are good at uncovering the business problems, right? Only 61% are, right? Now, those who can do much better in quotas. So trying to make it easy for the rep, right? We kind of say we need to kind of think about how you can visualize this, because you can tell a story much better in pictures. And in this example, if you can read it, it talks about what the customer is trying to achieve. They're trying to grow revenue by 15 billion. They have some issues around market consolidation, increased competition, margin pressure. And here's kind of a visual that looks at things from the customer's perspective. It is, of course, the case that it's not the company that has the problem, it's the people that have the problem. And so the salesperson needs to be able to, in their account plan, identify who are the key players, right? And identify and access. And again, just another piece of data, right? Just over half of reps are good at identifying key players. Right? And that's a really big issue. And it kind of goes to, sometimes I'll speak to the people who want to speak to me, right? As opposed to the people that I need to speak to, who have the business problems and the business impact that I described on the last thing. And it would be good if we can kind of go and visually represent that, right? So we get a picture of who's where, who influences what, and as I kind of step through it. What happens when I know the business problems and the people, right? I can start to get to what are the issues. And this is my ideation phase of my account planning. This is where I start brainstorming, come up with ideas, and try and understand what it is that the customer really wants to do, how my solutions might actually be applied to solve their problem. And when this happens, this is the value of account planning. This is where the boring stuff becomes worthwhile, right? This is when you start, your pipeline should start bulging because you understand really what they're trying to do. You're working with your team, and you end up coming up with a few little gems of ideas that had you taken an opportunity-focused approach, right, you wouldn't have kind of had your mind open enough for that. And your goal, of course, is to come up with a whole bunch of sales opportunities. And we're looking here at what we call the opportunity map. And across the top are a bunch of solutions that you're trying to sell, right? So in this case, you see Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and so on. And down the left, you see the business units. So my job is to sell all my solutions to all of the business units, if that's appropriate. And you can see some kind of white space in the middle, and that's my white space where I can go and figure out, well, they must have some issues here, right? So maybe I should understand what their issues are and go and figure that out. And I end up with a bunch of opportunities that I might have. But what I don't know yet is I don't know, do I have a full picture of what they actually spend, right? So what's the total addressable market, because it's the market that I'm in. So all these little blue things are little wallets, right? And I care about wallet share, right? Because we want to maximize wallet share, but it gives you a sense of what your total addressable market is, right? And if that's the case, and I have lots of opportunities, the only reason why I can't get all of it is because there might be some competition, right? So what I'm trying to do here is make account planning for the rep easy to do, easy to measure, and easy to manage. So as I step through that. So, and of course, as with the account unit thing we did at the start, where we kind of prioritized, we need to do the same thing in terms of opportunities, and we need to focus really clearly, right? Laser-like focus on the opportunities that I should go after. Because remember, I've now developed a whole bunch of opportunities because of my ideation and brainstorm, and I want to do the same kind of thing here that I did earlier. And pick what are the parameters that are important to you in terms of prioritizing those opportunities that you pursue, because they're not all created equal. And you'll see there's an axis, you can just see half it there, right? So value to us and value to the customer. And what you should be pursuing for effective account planning always is mutual value. So if we can find where our interests are aligned, then it's more likely that I'm not going to be competing as aggressively. I'm not going to be as concerned about price. I'm not going to be concerned about those things. So once I've done that, I just then need to go and build out my plan, decide what my objectives are, and kind of step through it in terms of what am I trying to achieve, what strategy am I going to employ to do it, and kind of get a set of actions. So and there's a few different types of objectives. And of course, we start from a place where the reason we're doing this, right, in most cases, the reason we're doing this is to grow revenue. But here's the thing about revenue. I'm trying to make this simple in my own head, right? When we think about revenue, there are really only 4 things that matter, right? So if you think about this, the number of deals you're working on, the average value of a deal, your win rate, and your sales cycle. These are the only 4 levers that you can pull to impact the revenue. Does that make sense? Right, so I can't think of anything else. So if you think about account planning, so how does account planning help me with this? Well, I've identified where all my solutions apply across all the different business units, so I'm filling my pipeline hopefully with some more deals. Because I understand their business, and because I understand what they're trying to achieve, there's going to be less price pressure, and my value is going to be increased, and my win rate is typically going to be better because I can keep the competitor out early. And as a consequence, my sales cycle is also shorter. And we call that the kind of sales velocity, right? And it's the only measure, if you like, in terms of a rep that I actually really care about, right? If I'm sales manager, right? So dollars per day, right? So how much can I get per day? It doesn't mean that all deals close quickly, but it means the combination of those 4 levers, right, are what determine the return that I get from my rep on a daily basis. And if I can improve, say, the deals, the value, and the win rate by 10% each, and I reduce the sales cycle by 10%, I get a 47% uplift in my productivity. And with that kind of focus that account planning can help, you can get the 40% uplift in the productivity without adding additional resource. Now, it's rare that any one company has all the solutions for any one customer. Right? It's very rare. Sometimes we like to think that we can solve all of their problems all of the time, but it's likely that, particularly in a large account, that you don't have all the solutions. So it's important building out the account plan that you also have you might consider your partnering strategy. And you might have some partnering objectives that you need to kind of think about, right? Because your job is to focus on delivering value to the customer so that you can stop them becoming that former customer. The other area that is important in my marketplace, of course, is marketing. And marketing has a really important role to play. One is clear messaging, and this one is for people like me that says, the thing on the left says, this one runs on fat and saves you money, and the one on the right says, this one runs on money and makes you fat, right? But the thing about this is less about the message, but more about the clarity, right? And marketing has an important role to play as we kind of step through it, and in terms of my objectives. So I'll have revenue objectives and partner objectives and marketing objectives and business dev objectives and so on as I step through it. And remember where we started from, right? And we know that there's only 53% of reps who are effective at maximizing revenue from the key accounts. And there's a 41% revenue improvement opportunity that we can look at with account planning. So I want to talk a little bit about just a few key best practices. Right? So I want to step through some of the things that we've observed with our customers that we think have worked. And I started with, at the start, kind of research. Right? So this is research for insight. Right? Now I want to research the customer. I need to know about their business, their industry's trends. What are the internal and external pressures that they need to react to? I need to understand any competitive force that's stopping me in achieving my goal. I need to understand the level of relationship my competitor has. Right? I need to understand how they sell their products, their services, my competitive advantage and disadvantage, and understand how to apply those. And equally importantly, I need to understand the resources that my company can bring to help solve my customers' problems. The second thing I spoke about is integrate for velocity, right? And talked about the customer's knowledge that they share with us, right? The information we get from other people on the account team, and the data that's typically in my CRM. Excuse me. So I need to be able to take the customer information, the data that's in my CRM, I need to be able to pull it all together and use it in the context of what my company is trying to achieve. And when I do that, I can get tremendous velocity. Because so many account plans, and you'll have seen this, so many account plans are done at the start of the year. They're put in a binder. Is there a binder full of girls phrase I heard recently, right? But they're put in a binder, right? And they're put on a shelf, and they're not used, right? So account planning needs to be active and live, and I can only do that if it's integrated with the rest of the systems that I use. And the third piece is focus. It is all about the customer. We need to get them from prospect to customer to loyal customer and stop there. Right? And that's where we can do that if we recognize the fact that the impact on the customer of a bad buying decision is usually greater than the impact on the salesperson of a lost deal. And if we take that focus, then that focus helps. And we look at our marketplace and decide what are the segments that we play in, where we go, so we can pick that sweet bit of fruit and avoid the lemons. But if you don't want to do any of that, and if you kind of at the end of this go, yeah, you know, he said at the start that account planning was boring, and he was right, and it still is, and it's hard work. You know, the beauty is you can say the nice thing about not planning is that failure comes as a complete surprise and is not preceded by a period of worry and depression. Right? So you might end up having a happier life, and that's a good thing, right? But that's not why I'm here, right? And here's my brief commercial. Deep methodology is really important. Using technology to integrate for velocity is really important. And the sign in the middle points the way to that. I'll thank you for your time and take any questions.